asked her about, because she wasn't content just to say religious people volunteer for charity, as if that was news to anybody, but she had to couple it with a smear against Fabianism and social democracy. Now, as a matter of fact...
Well, they weren't there, Christopher. That's all I was saying.
I'm so sorry to say that without
the
efforts of Fabianism...
But you're good at smears.
The efforts of Fabianism...
What's wrong with the smear?
I'll get to the end of this sentence if it kills you.
I, for one, will take it as extremely insulting if any person of faith makes the assumption that their faith gives them a moral edge on me. I want to hear a lot more apologizing from the faith-based communities for the evil that they've done before they even start clearing their throats and telling me I wouldn't know right from wrong without their permission. I'm sorry, I won't be, can't be spoken to in that tone of voice, and nor should any of you.
So what if God actually exists, sir? Would he not have been good to you?
No. He wouldn't. Because if that were true, it would mean that I had an eternal supervising parent who would never die and let me get on with my life, never let me grow up, would keep me under surveillance.
But you have, sir.
And supervision every minute of my life,
but
and constantly asked me to be thanking and praising him.
Yeah,
I think it would be
wasn't part of the scenario.
Like living in North Korea. I think it would be a horrible outcome.
Well, not sure that God is Kim Jong-il, but what if what I said is true?
Well, ask Kim Jong-il, he has a different opinion.
Well, secularism is the only guarantee of religious freedom, and yours and that of every other Muslim we will defend. But you won't be surprised that we have some questions for you in the meanwhile. Thank you.
The people who you've been the megaphone for all evening and been encouraging, I might add, the silly girl who says, why should it only be men who decide? The people who... Randall Terry, Catholic... Randall Terry... Wait, are you asking me or telling me?
I'm asking you a question.
Well, why don't you listen to what I've got to say then?
You're saying that they're ridiculous people.
I've had to be sitting in this chair for half an hour listening to you being a megaphone for frauds, and I'm giving you my response. It's very impressive to me.
Okay, good.
It's very often the first thing. When we debate with Catholics, they always change the subject to charity right away. With Jews, it's usually a little later.
You just said that they...
And with Muslims, it's
at the very
all
end.
the time. Because what else can they don't want to defend their faith.
But you just said the opposite. You just said that if you didn't believe, you wouldn't do it.
They don't want to defend their faith. They don't want to say, they feel uneasy talking about redemption, salvation, all this kind of thing. But look at the good work we've done. If you talk to the Mormons, they'll say, you may not think much of Joseph Smith. And I say, you got that right. Say, but, boy, you should see our missionaries in Peru.
So government will do the work if religion does not?
Excuse me,
government?
What has this got to do with the existence of God or the validity of religious claims? It has nothing to do with it,
social
which
utility.
is why it's always introduced as a time-wasting tactic.
Wait. No, don't applaud that.
Nothing to do with it.
Your view would be the same as mine, that child sacrifice is reprehensible, would it not?
Did Abraham think child sacrifice was an okay idea?
He obeyed God and God intervened. The ultimate question is, does God think child sacrifice, since he sent his own son to be the ultimate sacrifice?
Well, he appears to be in favor of it.
He does appear to be in favor of it, but in context.
You and I agreed that we were not. I'm only asking.
In his comment, one of the few he's made, on the institutionalization of rape and torture and maltreatment of children in Catholic institutions, he has said, it's a very severe crisis which involves us, he said, in the following: in the need for applying to these victims the most loving pastoral care. Well, I'm sorry. They've already had that.
The Bishop of Llandaff, in an argument with Thomas Paine, once said, well, when it says keep the women, as Paine had pointed out, he said, I'm sure God didn't mean just to keep them for immoral purposes. Well, what does the Bishop of Llandaff know about that? It says kill all the men, kill all the children, and keep the virgins. I think I know what they had in mind. I don't think it's moral teaching.
For you to say of Nazism that it was the implementation of the work of Charles Darwin is a filthy slander, undeserving of you, and an insult to this audience. If it's an atheistic regime, then how come that in the first chapter of Mein Kampf, Hitler says he's doing God's work and executing God's will in destroying the Jewish people? How come the Führer oath that every officer of the party and the army had to take, making Hitler into a minor god, begins, I swear in the name of Almighty God, my loyalty to the Führer? How come that on the belt buckle of every Nazi soldier it says Gott mit uns, God on our side? How come that the first treaty made by the National Socialist dictatorship, the very first, is with the Vatican?
If someone tells me that I've hurt their feelings, I say, well, I'm still waiting to hear what your point is. Right. I'm very depressed how in this country you can be told, that's offensive, as if those two words constitute an argument or a comment. Not to me, they don't. And I'm not running for anything, so I don't have to pretend to like people when I don't. Right.
I want to go back to this importance of narrative in its own right. They're fables, they're folk tales that have endured. They're not literally true, but there's great value in the universal truths that are taught just by the story itself. For example, the creation story. Could you at all agree with me that some of those stories are valuable just as a metaphor?
The creation story is ridiculous garbage and has given us a completely false picture of our origin as a species and of the origins of the cosmos. It's done nothing but harm, and it's considered laughable by anyone who's ever studied the subject. I mean, if you want me to give you a good mythical or quasi-mythical story, it would be the life of Socrates. We have no proof, as with Jesus, that he ever existed. So it doesn't matter to me whether he did or not, because we have his teachings and his method of thinking and his extreme intellectual and moral courage. And anyone who could look me in the eye and say they preferred the story of Jesus or Moses or Muhammad to the life of Socrates would, I think, be, I have to say it to you, intellectually defective.
Is it really to be believed that until they got to the foot of Mount Sinai, the followers of Moses believed that up till then, adultery, murder, theft, and perjury were okay? They're suddenly told, oh, hey, we got some new ideas for you. I don't think so. It's a bit of an insult to the ancient Jewish faith, of which Jacob and I are both rather disgraceful ornaments in our different ways.
As in vindication, being proved repeatedly and over again right when other people were wrong, that does a lot for me. But raising the sights just a fraction, I'd say that to me that what matters most is the pursuit of happiness, in the words of our greatest founding father, and the pursuit of liberty, freedom, and that these things are incompatible, completely incompatible with the worship of an unalterable celestial dictator, someone who can watch you while you sleep and convict you of thought crime, and whose rule cannot be challenged, and who's the big brother whose eternal reign may not be disputed. That makes the concept of the pursuit of freedom and happiness completely negative, negates it. So one of the things I live for is to return a stout and joyful non-serviam to this dictator, who I'm pleased to find doesn't really exist, but is instead a creation of those who want to install a theocracy in the real life where I can participate, and I'm not going to give them an inch. The second thing I live for is, if not exactly passing on my genes, taking part in activities that might allow those genes to be passed on. And not scorning the three delightful children who result, who are everything to me and who are my only chance of even a glimpse of a second life, let alone an immortal one. And I'll tell you something, if I was told to sacrifice them to prove my devotion to God, if I was told to do what all monotheists are told to do, and admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God, I'd say, no, fuck you.
Do you believe that God, if he's provided everything for you, has rights on your life?
No.
Because?
Why should he? What gives him his right?
Because he owns you. He's created everything for you. He's kept you alive.
I don't want to be owned. I don't want to be owned, and I don't recognize anyone's right to own me.
So ownership is a bad thing?
Of people, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's been widely considered. I mean, I know the Bible does call for slavery, as it calls for genocide, but that doesn't make it right.
In Christianity, you have the idea, for example, that morality is intentional. If you've contemplated the sin, Christ says, in a sense, you've committed it.
Thought crime.
One second. The mullah
thought
doesn't...
crime. Totalitarianism again. Thought crime.
Whether it is or not...
We know what you're thinking, and we can punish you for it. Totalitarianism defined. Tyranny defined. Thought crime.
Now, I hope I've made myself clear on the... But I'm wondering if I have, because you face me, Reverend, with two very unwelcome thoughts. Either I have been completely inarticulate in everything I've said this evening, or you have misunderstood me. I have to throw myself, or these are not mutually exclusive. And I should have seen that coming.
Not imposed? Did you really say not imposed? What if you reject this offer? What have you been told for centuries by Christians? If you reject this offer that took place by means of a torture to death of a human being that you didn't want and should have prevented, if you could. What if you reject the offer? If you accept it, you can have eternal life and your sins are forgiven. Oh, great. What a horrible way to abolish your own responsibility and get your own bliss. I don't want it. Oh, you don't? Well, then you can go to hell. This is not imposed. This hasn't been preached to children by gruesome elderly virgins backed by force for centuries. This hasn't poisoned whole societies. You can make anything up like that as you go along, as far as I can see. It means it's white noise. White noise, what you're talking to me. Absolutely meaningless. I just have to say, I make my living by scrutinizing words. It's what I do. Not a single thing you just said made a word of sense to me.
Well, that's because
I don't think it would have written. I don't think it would have written down either.
What is it about the way I'm talking that you can't understand?
It's ingratiating tone, I think. Probably, and the unctuousness of it, and the extreme imprecision.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I don't like.
Oh, my goodness. Extreme imprecision. That is
extreme vagueness and imprecision.
Vagueness and imprecision.
I'm not saying mysticism is not great, am I? I'm saying that the belief that there is a divine revelation that can be interpreted by humans giving themselves secular power in the here and now is a real